Welcome to Live and Learn. I'm the Joker of the group, the soy pill, who has started the live with a frozen guest.
Guys, so we knew that he was having tech issues, right? He just freeze framed there. We don't know what the fuck is going on. And so we're like, let's start it right now because it's a funny face.
Yeah, that's how we introduce him. Also, I mean, I saw the comment that said my slop is late, so I couldn't start without it. And he's gone. And he's gone. Oh,
what a great show.
That's fine. That's fine because we're going to introduce.
Josiah would never stand for it. I'm like one of those mobsters who like the old days.
He doesn't know the ways of the family. I mean, come on. I mean, Josiah would start.
These soldiers these days. I know he was.
He commended me, and I'm not trying to suck my own dick because he commended me for like
you have a structure.
The podcast. I'm like, yes. I'm just saying the name of the podcast.
No, I'm talking shit because Josiah was very structureless and he would do shit like that. But no, I'm totally fucking around. I don't know why I'm in like a mafia kick.
But we love Josiah.
We love Josiah. In fact, permission to honor him every day for the rest of my life.
Yeah, we should have like a 30-minute moment of silence for him at the beginning of every single episode of Live and Learn.
I hope he never dies. I really do.
Wow, he's back.
What? So yeah. I think
and we're joined by Micah Efran of Midas Touch, UFA, and several other group fame. What's up,
Micah?
He
is.
From the DNC. Nice to be with y'all. Yeah, I guess FBI, like the FBI / Cash Patel targeted my Wi-Fi, but they couldn't take it down.
Oh. Yeah, well, they're doing a pretty good job right now of fucking up your video because you're lagged out, bro. Should never have
kids
underestimated Cash. Yeah, these days, man.
You know why Cash Patel's able to interfere with his Wi-Fi is because he's so small that he can get inside the phone and mess with the antenna.
I didn't realize how tiny he is and how Micah, you're coming in and out. No one has heard you. We're just buying time here, talking shit about Cash. Remember Cash for Clunkers? What was that?
Yep.
What was that about? Cash for Clunkers. Kind of, not really. It's really fucked up. Who's that woman to your right? Oh yeah.
It's very not good. Well, you know what? That's fine because while he's figuring it out, let's watch a clip of Micah. Let's introduce.
Yes, let's introduce Micah.
Let's introduce who he is since he can't do it himself. This is a clip of Micah at the UFA debates. He was debating. I want to say this is one of those Jubilee Republicans, but he seems familiar. But let's
one of these guys.
One of those fucks. One of those.
I like the hair, by the way. Very Beatles. Very like it's giving like young, vibrant, and Zoomer energy.
Yeah. All right, here we go. And
the one big beautiful bill.
Hell
that's a bill. That's
no, actually, I don't.
You don't know about it. That's the single biggest legislative accomplishment of the Trump administration.
It was so in depth, guys. It's a hard read. Okay, the education system failed me. That's why we're trying to.
This is what I've been dealing with
the education system.
Okay, well, I'll talk to you about it because I think a lot of Americans don't know about it. Trump ran on a lot of populist things. He said, I'm not going to cut Medicaid. I'm not going to cut SNAP. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of Americans that don't usually vote for Republicans voted for Trump because he said he was for the little guy. But here's what he did whenever he came into office. The one big beautiful bill cut Medicaid by $1 trillion. Millions of Americans are going to lose their health insurance because of this president. And he lied in his campaign.
In one of the most liberal states that ever existed, we founded liberalism. So your version of liberalism
was
could
founded
be
in Europe.
completely different than my version of liberalism. So,
is he trying to rejoin?
My version, the cop out.
Wait. This guy's such a fucking loser. He's not even responding to the point. Yeah. Like, I'm in California.
I was going to say I watched this live, and this was maybe one of the most painful things I had to listen to.
Yeah, this guy sucks.
All right, now there are two Micahs joining. Mike, which one is the real Micah? Well, the real
Y'all
Micah,
hear me?
please stand up. Yeah, we can hear you, but which one are you?
This is amazing. I'm sitting next to the router now.
Next to who?
I'm sitting next to the router. Wait.
You could join on your phone, too.
Yeah, you can just be on your phone on 5G. Well, Trump is trying to do 6G. We got to give him credit for that, for trying.
This is amazing.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
So, Micah, we're not going to start from the beginning. You already know what happened. We're watching you own this. I was going to say libtard, but he's actually not a liberal. Sorry.
Don't say any slurs here. Don't say any slurs.
Libtard's not a slur.
This person.
Can I
Who
just
was
ask
this person, anyways?
Yeah, Micah.
Who's your opponent here, Micah?
So his name is Michael, and he actually is like the worst person ever. Okay, I called him, and we figured out what the topics were. ahead of time. He agreed to the topic. Whenever
Wow.
we go to the event, he's an hour late.
Oh, that's
Right.
right. Yeah, he was the reason we had to start late.
Then he shows up and he tells me we can't do this topic. I don't know anything about the economy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, just get on stage. Everybody's waiting for you.
Smartest MAGA person, by the way. Smartest MAGA debater.
He gets on stage and I just ask him, like, do you support Trump's economic positions? Like, do you know anything? Do you support a single one? He's like, I don't know. Can you like list some? And I said, like, tariffs. He's like, I understand the tariff concepts.
Oh, no.
Oh
What
my
the hell are you?
God.
It was awesome, actually. It was like a complete and total disaster, and I really enjoyed every second of it.
In that moment, just then, by the way, you were making like a very specific point about the kind of populist appeals that Trump would make vis-a-vis these programs that he ultimately cut in the Big Beautiful Bill. And his response was like, well, I grew up in California, me. Like they've been able to get away with this shit of wink, wink, Gavin Newscomb, and like pretend that those are arguments. So how did it feel when you know he's being unresponsive and squirrely?
Yeah, I mean, it was great because everybody in the audience was like reacting. It doesn't really pick it up in the mic, but like everybody's like making faces and stuff. And it's like we're having this joint experience of like how stupid this guy is. I didn't include a clip of this, but he ended up calling Kamala Skamala. So
speaking of a joint experience, the guy looks like it could they just smoked a bunch of fucking joints. But that said, I do want to commend you because in these environments where there's a lot of audience members, I find it can be very nerve-wracking. It's a lot easier for me in the context of like these Tim Pool conversations to have it on the set. But sometimes when the crowd gets involved, it can be like a wild card, and it seems like you're a natural.
No, I enjoy it. I mean, it was a better audience there than outside of TPUSA's America Fest, where I was also debating people. In those environments, there's more people looking upon you and like judging. But with this guy, he actually went to the back after it was over, and he was like complaining. He was like, he should have listened to me more. That guy, I was his elder. Doesn't he know that I'm his elder? The guy's like 25 years old. Like
he's how old? Do you say 35?
25.
What, you're like 20, right?
I'm 22. It's like not even that much of a difference.
You're a toddler. You're so young.
Well, that's what I'm curious, Micah, like in your assessment, because there was a lot of people here. There were like the groypers, and those people I think are not grifting. They truly are like white nationalists. I want to make the world, a worse place. This person seems to me like just a grifter insofar as like they don't understand anything. It's just, I have like a little bit of a gay coded personality, and if I identify as a Republican, I get more attention because they're desperate for those sorts of people. Is that the impression you got, or is this person genuinely just stupid?
Can we say the R word here?
I say it all the time. You got to ask Pisco.
I don't say it. I try not to say it.
Okay, Pisco's retarded. You can say it.
Okay, I think this guy's just a retard. I think there's like a lot of like MAGA Republicans that support Trump, but they're like super dumb. So like they don't know anything. This guy's only reason for supporting Trump is like Joe Biden open borders or something, and also something about trans, but I'm not really sure what it is because he's never been coherent in explaining what it is. It's interesting though. I talked to a lot of groypers at AmFest, and I was like kind of, I don't know. It's like they were like the personification of exactly what you think groypers would be like. One of the groypers I spoke to is like this 20-year-old who has like this like mischievous evil mustache. Like he thinks that
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, the Jews control the world, and like white people are superior. But then he has like a Hispanic.
Is he Iranian?
No, he's not Iranian. Yeah, I wish he was. That'd be more forgivable.
Fucking, he looked like he was one of those like villains from an old western who throws the woman on the train tracks. You know what I'm talking about? Not that person.
So yes, just like that.
Snidely Whiplash from Rocky and Bullwinkle, or what's the Canadian Rocky and Bullwinkle guy? Oh my god.
Maybe
I
like
don't even know what Rocky and Bullwinkle are.
Someone's old enough to know what I'm talking about. Dudley Do-Right. Jesus Christ.
Certainly not me. But none of these groypers have white girlfriends. Like I just find it like super remarkable.
Yeah, that's the meme. Is never ask a white supremacist what race his girlfriend is, because it's always like a Latina or an Asian or something, because they never walk the walk. And I don't know if that makes it a grift or if they're just like, you're one of the good ones. But it's very obvious that they like never. Their whole ideology is based on never actually having to see their ideology come to fruition, so they can just keep complaining about the modern day, right?
If you ask any of them, like, oh, do you have like Indian friend or like a Hispanic friend? They always say yes. And, like, they don't think that person should be deported, just like everybody else.
Just the ones I don't see or know or hear about.
Yeah.
Micah, can I ask you a question? So speaking of white boys, what is it with like this new crop of like very like pro-liberal activists type young people who are all like sub 24, and they're all like white guys? I'm thinking Harry Sisson. I'm thinking Dean
Withers, Luke
Beasley, Adam Mockler. You're all kind of like these like white, like very clean looking guys. Like, why aren't there more
Wait, Pisco, are you allowed to say twinks? I know you don't say the R word.
I can say twink. Can we say twink?
Yeah.
Aren't
they're all kind of twinks, right?
I reject that label.
When you're young, you're skinny as shit, and you look little. It's hard to put on muscle. Your metabolism's flying. Come on.
Okay, but what is it? What is it? Did you guys all get together and have
there's a factory, actually? Yeah, there's a factory. It used to be in China, thanks to tariffs. Now it's in the United States, and we're just being pumped out.
Here's the question:
where's the factory?
Why are you not conservative? Why do you think you were drawn to be a liberal, and so many young guys in your position would be going to the right?
So it is interesting, actually. I grew up super conservative. My dad's a minister. My grandparents like would donate like all of their excess income to the Republican Party, and I grew up listening to like right-wing talk show radio. The reason why I became a Democrat is because Trump was such an odious person. Like, I remember him winning in 2016. And it felt really bad for some reason, even though everybody was celebrating. Actually, people in my school, I went to a Christian
really?
School, were like shouting, like, yes, like we won. In 2012, I remember people were chanting Romney at my school whenever like it first started. Like all the kids were chanting Romney. These were like people in 5th and 6th grade. We were like the only people that actually liked Romney. That's how conservative we were. And I just saw how Trump was, and I thought that can't be the good guy. And started when I was 15 years old, I started working on Democratic campaigns, and I've been trying to do activism ever since. And I've kind of realized in the past couple of years that the internet is actually where the battle for hearts and minds is occurring. And that's why I've become more and more terminally online. You know, this year I have barely even touched grass, so we're making progress.
Who are your inspirations?
In terms of like political figures?
Yeah, political figures, people who you aspire some aspect of themselves, maybe a politician here or there. You were a part of the Midas Network, you said, right?
Yeah, I work with Adam Mockler.
The Mock. He's doing a great job on CNN, but he's kind of your generation. For me, it was a lot of like Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert, these kinds of people, even some of these like new atheist types who, in other respects, that I grew up with. But I imagine the kind of content that you were fed in your algo or in what you chose to watch. What got you to the mentality that you are now, other than like your humanism or whatever? Like, who are the figures that inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely as a kid, what made me less of a religious zealot was like Christopher Hitchens. I watched every single Christopher Hitchens video like multiple times. I read the books, all the new atheist stuff. That was important for me. I'm not sure if I fully agree with the new atheists today, but that definitely kind of broke maybe like the reformative hegemony, which had on like my mind of like these conservative right-wing Christian thinkers. And then over time, I would say there's a lot of philosophy that's been inspiring to me. I think Peter Singer, I think a lot of the effective altruist people, Michael Humer. I think that's
Are you on the Shrimp Welfare Project train?
What's that?
Are you on the Shrimp Welfare Project train?
I don't even know what that is.
You're an effective altruist, and you've never heard of the Shrimp Welfare Project?
I'm missing out.
Really. Well, real quick, sorry to interrupt, but for a little amount of money, you can get anesthesia for thousands of shrimp to make it so their deaths are painless, and it's the most like bang for your buck charity you could possibly donate to.
Time to completely redirect all of my income from giving money to poor Africans to that, because that sounds like it produced slightly more utility.
No, magnitudes more utility. Okay. Not even close. Yeah. No. Okay. So, but go on. Sorry, you were talking more about effective altruism.
Yeah, I honestly think like philosophers are the most inspiring to me. When I think about political figures, I don't know. Like it's my firm belief that most American politicians kind of suck in terms of policy. Some people are really good at politics. I think Gavin Newsom's been doing a pretty good job recently. John Ossoff's pretty good, but like I'm a very policy oriented guy, so like I don't really look up to many political figures. Maybe Jake Akenclaus. I think he's pretty cool.
But like you're not so. I'm not the only one who's a little bit disappointed in some of our Democratic leaders. You also have.
Oh, absolutely. Like Schumer needs to go.
Oh, interesting.
Really advantage that Hutch isn't here.
Interesting. Well, just wondering, why do you want Schumer to go?
Yeah, I mean,
why is Schumer
Schumer
gonna
needs to go because literally he manages to be less popular than Donald Trump, a pedophile, and I think that's a disaster. Like, how can we have the Republican Party, which is currently like actively ravaging the lives of normal Americans? Let me give you one example. My mom's health insurance premium has increased by more than 500%. Her boyfriend, 600%. They're on the ACA. Millions of people are about to lose health insurance because of the Medicaid cuts, $1 trillion. Meanwhile, we have a leader of our party, which is so unpopular, so incompetent, that he has a lower approval rating than the president of the United States. That is absurd. The fact that Senate Democrats haven't ousted this guy by now is an indictment of their care for politics. Stop putting your own political careers and connections above the American people. Get Schumer out yesterday, please.
And replace him with whom?
With literally
Murphy.
Probably
Come
Murphy.
on.
I
They'll
don't
have the
even
same
know
approval rating. You give him no credit for this shutdown that brought the ACA fight to the forefront. Nobody was talking about the expiring enhanced ACA subsidies before Schumer.
In spite of
we
him,
won handedly those elections in New Jersey and
In-
Virginia, partly because of that.
In spite of him, I want to channel Hutch though, to be fair to the other side, which is like, wait, you think that the leader of the Democratic majority needs to be like popular? He needs to worry about other things. He has to keep his caucus together in his committees.
Well, he didn't
Like,
keep his
well,
caucus
he
together
can't keep his
because the
caucus
shutdown
together.
was broke behind his
Oh,
back.
good point, Micah. Good point. Great point.
Oh,
You win.
By people like Angus King, he's an independent. He just caucuses with the Dems. I find it hard to keep all these guys in line. But anyways, it's fine that they broke the shutdown because we got Snap off the table and we'll have another shutdown next month and we'll be able to get even more.
I hope we do. I hope we do. That said, there are inspiring Democratic leaders, and I agree with you, Micah. Gavin Newsom, I think, has read the room correctly. A lot of it's anti-Trump. Are you scared, though, of, because that's the politician you cited, does he get it? Does he get young men like you? Is he going to be able to?
I think he gets communication. I mean, he's doing stuff with like Atrioc. Like that's when you know that he's doing stuff with Roblox YouTubers. Like he kind of understands how to communicate. I think Rokon is another example. But his issue is that he's tied to California in a bunch of really unpopular positions. Now he's trying to pivot on the trans issue. It's kind of weird though, because every time he talks about it, I think it just makes people dislike him. Like he's like the more progressive people don't like him. Right wingers don't like it whenever he says, for instance, I want to see trans kids, out of context quote, but that's how the internet works. I think his biggest issue is that California is the most expensive state in the country in a time where we're having the affordability crisis. And there's policies on the table that they're not pursuing that could be making that better. And I really hope he does that over the next 3 years so that is less of a strong attack on him.
Well, he's not. Are you talking about Gavin or are you talking about Roe?
Gavin.
Oh, okay, for sure. Because I was like, Roe's trying to pivot away from the, like super expensive stuff because now he's coming after the billionaires with that wealth tax. I don't know if you guys saw, where he's like wants to raise some like income tax or something by like a few percent, and like every single investment guy and capital person. Oh, okay. Why is this stupid? Is it because the argument they seem to say is this is going to cause the money flight, right?
We obviously are going to have flight, but also it's just like you live in California. There's such an affordability crisis, and a lot of it's produced by regulatory stuff. And you're trying to raise taxes even more. Like I'm not against taxes, but I am against raising taxes whenever you're already not using your tax dollars efficiently. California is spending tens of billions of dollars on the homelessness issue, and it's extraordinary how inefficient they are, right? And like, I don't want to do some normal stock, like abundance talking points, but like what they were talking about is really right. And like, whenever you're not following the really basic stuff, like, I don't know, getting homeless people off the street, making sure criminals are going to jail, having an efficient welfare system, you shouldn't be asking for more money from the taxpayer.
Even if it's like on a district level instead of a governor, right? Like if Gavin was proposing this nationwide and wasn't fixing these problems, I agree. But this is just because Ro Khanna is in the Silicon Valley Tech District, right?
Well, I think it's more of an issue there because if it's imposed, it's going to be imposed at the state level, right? That's the proposal, from my understanding.
Yeah,
people will leave, right? Like you could do more inefficient taxes at the federal level than the state level because it's harder for people to run from them.
I just don't think anybody's going to leave over 1%. They've got a life here, they've got a home, and it just seems strange to me that they would do that. But my concern, what's that?
It's 5% over 5 years, and you carry interest if you do it, if you try to annualize it. So it ends up
it's 1% a year. I mean, even Biden was proposing something similar, like under taxing unrealized capital gains for people that have over $100 million. You know, I think at some point we're going to have to do something like that when so few people have so many of the resources. But my concern and bigger concern is that we're attacking the left. And I understand there's room for criticism, but I'm curious your thoughts, Micah, because I feel that a lot of people think they're helping by bringing up these criticisms of the left. But in my opinion, it doesn't lead to anything. It just leads to piling on. And then we see the left getting attacked from the left and the right, and it leads people to not like the left in the end. So I tend to avoid it. But I'm curious your thought.
So, I mean, listen, anybody who sees my content sees that I don't really attack the left very much. Now, this is like a podcast that's very much like a conversation of liberals amongst liberals, not to the general public. So that's where I air these things out. But in general, I mean, obviously, the Republican Party is awful. It's the party of the oligarchy. It's the party of hatred, of abuse, destroying our Constitution, destroying our democracy. They're the enemy. We should focus our fire on them. Something on the tax issue, though, is I do think we can raise taxes even in states like California. We should just do it a smart way. Land value tax, Henry George. This is what we should be doing, okay? Tax the living hell out of land, which is totally efficient, okay? Deprive Bill Gates and all of these asset holders billions of dollars of net worth, raise enormous amounts of money. Don't do these kind of more inefficient taxes, which might end up backfiring and therefore hurting the left electorally.
It's funny that you bring up abundance in the context of the wealth tax proposal. I heard Ezra talking to Gavin Newsom about this. And I even think he acknowledged that there's an issue here, which is if you just tax income, you know, it's almost arbitrary in that sense. There's like a big disparity in wealth, and only part of that is being realized through, you know, incomes, and a lot of it is accumulated wealth. It's hard to see how we're going to address big issues in inequality without addressing wealth. You are currently, are you public about what you're doing, education wise?
My job.
Or education wise?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a law student at the University of Virginia.
Awesome. Great school. One of the issues that I'm worried about with proposals to wealth tax, and frankly, a lot of the proposals that a lot of people on the left want, including not just like progressive left people, are like the legal implications. I'm kind of Josiah pilled on this a little bit, which is I doubt that wealth tax would survive constitutional muster in the current environment. And I don't think it's a trivial legal issue either. I don't think that the Supreme Court would be necessarily, it would depend on how it would come about and what it would be proposed, but that they would necessarily need to be acting ridiculously to rule that way. And so I do think that there are structural concerns that I think are conditions precedent to getting some of the changes that we need, including but not limited to tackling the judiciary and perhaps even talking about certain constitutional reforms, certain changes that way. Talk to me about your thoughts on that, because you come from a policy perspective. How much of your time is worried about like the meat and potatoes policies versus kind of the structural issues, DC statehood, Puerto Rico statehood, enforcing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, things like that, of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think
the judiciary.
I think institutional questions are number one, because ultimately our politics has been broken for a long time. I mean, even before Trump was threatening the existence of our democracy, it's not like the government was really delivering for Americans, even under President Obama, right? Because of the gridlock. There's a lot of bad incentives in government at the local, state, and federal levels that lead to bad policy decisions. And the way that you fix that is with institutional reform to fix the incentives of our politicians so they make better decisions. So I think that we need to have all-party primaries, not have partisan primaries, which reward extremism and create partisan loyalties. I think we need to have a different voting system. I prefer approval voting. I think that we need to reform our campaign finance system, so on and so forth. But on the issue of taxation, I think the big focus for Democrats should not be wealth taxes or even new taxes. It should be on fixing the income tax code, which is totally rigged against normal Americans. The number one budget item in our federal budget is not Social Security, actually. It is quote unquote tax expenditures, special tax credits, exemptions, credits, and loopholes add up to $1.8 trillion a year. That's higher than the deficit, which is currently $1.78 trillion. The vast majority of the benefits, I suspect over 80% of the benefits go to the top 10% of Americans. I say we slash those special tax breaks and we use that money first if we're trying to raise taxes and increase the revenue of the government, make the tax code simpler, and then prioritize adding new taxes, raising taxes, and so on and so forth.
I did not know that at all.
What about beefing up the IRS? Seems like the ROI is like $8 for every dollar we invest. I've heard we leave anywhere from like $750 billion on the table a year in uncollected tax revenue.
That's a huge issue as well. And then there's, corporate tax. Right now, there's huge corporate tax avoidance. Joe Biden was pursuing a global tax minimum. I don't think that's ever going to work. Countries benefit from defecting from that system. I think that we should do a destination-based cash flow tax. It sounds like a complex idea, but all it does is a border adjustment style system that means that all companies, regardless of their nationality, are taxed on all of the real profits they generate in the United States. And that would have no avoidance issues. It copies some methods used in Europe. And so there's different policies we can do like that just to make our tax code more efficient rather than just piling on new taxes while our current taxes are already in kind of bad shape.
Yeah, it's a very complex system. I hope that you don't. I didn't take a single tax law class in law school. I was just totally, I didn't want to start, not to say that other forms of law, including like immigration, for example, aren't super complex as well, but tax is incredibly complicated, even just to realize some of the tax advantages from the big, beautiful bill, which you would think are more simple things like the, the no tax on certain random shit, a little more in the weeds sometimes to even navigate those things. But certainly if you're richer, if you're better informed, you can take advantage of a lot of the provisions there. But that's not solving the country in a paragraph. I think that a lot of problems with exciting young people and people primarily in your position is the mismatch between, potentially like a policy wonk such as yourself and what they hear when you say, sensible policy strategies, that it's hard to excite people.
Sure.
And this was found, I think, sometimes in the Kamala Harris campaign where they're like, well, we have this housing plan, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to do this and that, whatever. And all Trump says, I'm going to lower prices on day one. And I feel that sometimes the youth has this exuberance as well. I supported Mamdani in the primary. I really like him. And part of his appeal was he had these slogans and policy agendas that were not just smart, but easy to sell. Walk me through your talk about appealing with policies that are good and maybe even in the context of young people.
Well, this has been the big transformation in how I view politics over the past couple of years. I started out in the policy space. I wanted to be an academic. And then I realized that nobody cares about research. Whenever I was doing housing advocacy in the city of Houston, not a single one of them cared about my studies. They only cared about their coalition's constituents, what would help them politically. And so I've realized, the best political message, I think, the best one for the country is one that is both appealing to voters and actually talks about good ideas, right? Trump's message about this immigration, nativist stuff is very effective, but it's actually bad policy. And so can we find a way to talk about good policies in an effective way? And I think that we can. I mean, you can tell a simple story about American politics, which is practically true. There's a set of powerful interest groups which control this country and put in place policies that benefit themselves at the expense of everyone else. And there's a system that empowers those powerful interest groups that's protected by a political class, which knows that if the system changes, it will damage their own position and jeopardize their own political power. And that is the ultimate enemy. That's the reason why nothing ever gets really better. And all of the promises they make never come to fruition. And if you're against that, that's what we should be fighting for.
It's interesting to hear you say that because that is populist rhetoric, correct?
Yeah.
And,
Yes,
and
it is
at that point, and I think I might even agree with you on that the battle is lost in terms of what kind of messaging if you want to be successful, at least at the bare minimum on the national campaign, as between wonkish messaging, technocratic messaging versus populism. It seems like most people agree that it's a populist era. Even
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. So, negative messaging is more effective than positive messaging. Simple as. Having a bad guy is more effective than not having a bad guy. Every good story has a bad guy. And so, yes, populism works. The question is, are we going to use it or are we going to keep throwing our hands up? The liberal strategy since Trump came around is to say, oh my God, this populist stuff he's saying is really dangerous and outrageous. True, but nobody cares, right? You need to give them your own alternative story instead of just saying, oh my God, our institutions are under attack. Nobody cares about our institutions. Nobody cares about our democracy, except for highly educated people and elites. That's 30% of the population, and 100% of them are voting for us. So we need a story for everybody else. And I think that we can have a liberal populism. With this group called Project Liberal, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with, I wrote their liberal manifesto, which is my attempt at creating a explicitly liberal narrative that's also kind of populist. And I think that's something that we can do for creative enough.
I was going to say, yeah, everything you're saying right before Pisco said it was a fusion of all the populist rhetoric that seems to be popular with people who as far as I know, never do any research, but also tied with the actual research of, hey, and these are the taxes that might actually work, and these are the problems with our government, but not just rich people bad, do thing against rich people, which is also somehow resonates with people, but doesn't have any of the fluff or it's just fluff. There's nothing behind it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sold on this sort of liberal populism.
Micah,
Yeah.
how do
I
you
mean,
avoid sounding like Cenk Uygur, where he's like,
Yeah,
just
no, I
blaming the
was immediately
donors,
thinking that. Yeah.
and he's like, there's this establishment class that's in charge of the media, and it's like every loss is blamed on them and never their fault, like TYT's fault, or I just like my question is, how do you avoid becoming Cenk Uygur with the populism that you just talked about, where you say it's this establishment class is just protecting their own interests? Because to me, it's just a boogeyman. Not trying to attack you. I'm just saying in general, it seems to be like a boogeyman that gives people kind of an excuse to not lift a finger. Like, well, what can I do against those powerful, evil people that I can't identify?
Seems like Mike is aware of that. Are you self-aware about the?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely. I mean, you see a lot of like, we call it about horseshoe theory, where people that are like their populism is like such a basic framework that they can basically end up finding themselves agreeing with folks on the totally different side of the ideological spectrum. I mean, if you ask me, do I think that it's best for people to think this way? Absolutely not. I think that people should think about things in an epistemically sophisticated way. I think they should understand data and public choice theory and how the government works, and like every good argument for every good position. But the reality is, about 70% of the population just will never think that way. And so the question is,
but now distinguish yourself from Cenk. Answer the question. So
yeah, I mean,
yes or no?
I mean, clearly, what I would say is different than what Cenk says. Like, Cenk will attack the media. I'll actually say, honestly, the media, compared to a lot of the media has adverse incentives. Yes. But they also have journalists that have some sort of integrity and have a code. The alternative to the media is the social media, the influencer class, which only cares about engagement and has no sort of code of ethics. You want to compare journalists to social media, the journalists are going to be more accurate every single time. So I would never say something like that, right? I would try to take true narratives and then boil them down to make the most compelling story. But I would never try to say that something that's false.
Tell somebody you wouldn't want to make some sort of horseshoe coalition with Nick Fuentes to take down the MAGA class.
Oh fuck yeah, no. Okay, I buy that. No, I buy that Micah is different from Cenk in substantive ways, and he's not talking about this Marjorie Taylor Greene ridiculous coalition. I assume, right? Micah?
Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I buy that you're on site, and I almost agree that the media component is a big part of it. The part that I think I'm convinced on, you tell me your thoughts about it, is that we ought to be more negative than positive. Instead of bolstering New York Times, Washington Post, these other journalists, like, take this issue with the fraud that's occurring in Minnesota and that's being covered in Minnesota by different actors, some good faith and some bad faith. You have the Biden administration starting to prosecute this fraud as early as they detected it in 2021, starting investigations, going after them. And we have confirmed prosecutions. This has been known, in other words. Not only has it been known, it's been reported on, including by the mainstream. And what we have, therefore, is desperate for some way to shift the message. The MAGA media class, these groups of supposed intrepid pioneers in the media industry who are fucking clueless and frauds, will start to take the narrative and pretend they discovered it with their own added lies and distortion and what have you. It feels like our time that we should spend a lot of it actually clowning on those people, talking shit about those people, and trying to bully those people, as opposed to trying to protect an infrastructure, though not completely corrupt or horrible, but that people don't have faith in. That is to say, mainstream media.
I think you play defense sometimes, but honestly, it's a symptom that you're losing the argument. Whenever you're defending, whenever you're explaining, you're losing. Whenever they're spreading misinformation about Minnesota fraud, and we're saying, actually, no, it's not as bad as you said, or actually, we've been talking about this
Biden's
for a while.
on it. Yeah.
Their reach is way higher than ours. We're losing this issue. We win whenever we're controlling the narrative, and they're on defense. When we're talking about Epstein, we're talking about new tariffs, so on and so forth. The issue with the right wing is, and this is the fundamental issue with the media ecosystem and why I'm so invested in doing more about it, the right wingers have a volume advantage on a lot of platforms, especially like X or Twitter. It depends on whether you like dead naming or not. Because they have such a volume advantage, they can just start winning the argument on something, and then we're trying to respond to them because they're already controlling the discourse, right? We could have been having this Minnesota fraud discussion years ago as Joe Biden discovers Minnesota fraud that happened under Donald Trump during COVID, because that's the truth. The biggest part of the fraud scandal was the Feeding Our Future scandal, which was discovered by Joe Biden for a program that was initially initiated under the Trump administration. But we don't have that kind of media dominance.
Do we want that though, Micah? I when I'm hearing this is like, yes, that would be cool if we had gotten ahead of this, but the reason we didn't is because it's like, hey, this is part and parcel of the government just doing its job, and we don't want to sensationalize something that's just, hey, there was some fraud here. Like, obviously Donald Trump had nothing to do with this fraud, whether or not it happened under his watch. So the idea of like, blowing this up as like this crazy, look how awful Trump of a president is, seems like the sensationalist rhetoric that MAGA is capitalizing on and is working, but is not something I don't know if that's what we want to become.
I'm going to even go one step further than you.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the argument that not only can we not just say directly it's Donald Trump's fault and put aside the hypocrisy stuff. Does he care about fraud? He's pardoning all these people, which obviously we win that argument if people cared about truth and logic. I'm going to go one step further, Swipel. In order to properly respond to emergencies, and this is what people like countries like China understand, this kind of fraud is the cost of doing business. That if you want to effectively respond to crises, you need to price in, and no one wants to hear this, certain amounts of fraud. And that's how they get things done so quickly. In other words, is they're giving out money quickly to people who need it and responding fast. And part of the benefit to that is it's done simply and it's done in a way that people who claim stuff get it. But the cost of that is there are going to be people who abuse it. And isn't that precisely what people will say about things like SNAP? People will say about unemployment type insurance is, well, look at all these fraudsters. Yeah, and there's proven fraudsters, and we should go after them.
It's kind of what's argued against in abundance, where they say, look, like the reason it takes so long for anything to happen is
correct. All the checks,
different means tests, and all of this bureaucracy. Like fraud should be built into the cost, and we should prosecute it. It shouldn't be something we're okay with. But yeah, I guess you're convincing me a little more, Pisco. Micah, defend yourself. Why should we become MAGA?
Well, so a couple of things regarding the fraud point. During COVID, we had over like about $100 billion of unemployment fraud, I think, according to the DOJ. PPP loan fraud was enormous. I don't think that was necessary. We could have had a much better system if we pre-planned these programs, if we had a more reasonable way of going about these things. I think the stimulus checks, for instance, had much less of a fraud issue, and we should prioritize things.
Wait a second. Wait. The stimulus checks, there's no way for that to be fraud. Is there? It's tied to your IRS.
That's exactly why that kind of sort of stimulus is preferable to what we do a lot in the United States. A lot of other countries don't do this. We make all these grants to independent nonprofits because we don't trust the government to do its own basic social services. I think one of the big consequences of that is you have a lot more fraud. But you see with the low-income housing tax credit, there's enormous amounts of fraud whenever we subsidize these affordable housing developments. And maybe we should just have the government start doing its essential functions. But regarding what you were saying earlier, Soypel, should we capitalize every time there's a potential PR disaster for the Republicans? I'm going to take a line from Eric Holder and say, yes, when they go low, we don't go high, we kick them. I'm sorry. The Michelle Obama approach of we're going to be so holy, we're going to be so honest and really nice all the time. It doesn't work in this epistemic environment. This is how social media works, and this is how discourse works nowadays.
But let me counter this, right? I'm not saying that we shouldn't, because if you know me, I'm all for playing dirty early. I never even went for the we go.
He lied to Rob Noor. Yeah. We were talking about Rob Noor. He lied to him to get him to go debate. I'll be right back, guys.
That's not what happened, Pisco. You're lying. No, what I'm saying is that why, like, what this was discovered maybe 2 years ago when this like first came out. Why would this become 2 years later, this story? Like, we would have to have predicted that this was going to become a right-wing disaster that they were going to bring up 2 years later and pretend like it's new, and then get ahead of that and say, okay, let's make this an attack on Trump. I'm not saying don't go dirty. I'm saying the thought never crossed so many people's mind because it's like so obscure and just doesn't make any sense to just pick this random thing when there are so many other things that directly are tied to the president and his administration that are awful that we can hit the button, like the tariffs, like the Epstein stuff. It just seems like, hey, anything bad that happens under Trump, just pick that up and call that like a disaster, even if it has nothing to do with him. Like that level of like flimsy attacking just every straw you can grasp, I think that is what's going to damage the rhetoric, because that's why MAGA looks so stupid to me, because sometimes every once in a while they'll get it right, but there's 99% of it's complete bullshit that I'm just like, even when they have like a valid criticism, I'm just like, whatever, like you've been talking at your ass for the past 5 years, so it's hard for me to buy into it. That's what I'm afraid of becoming.
Well, I don't think that, like, I'm not trying to say that this was the most powerful narrative and we should have used it. I'm just trying to say that part of the, like, right now, MAGA can make a huge mountain out of a molehill because of their volume, right? Because of their presence and their ecosystem. And that's a symptom of the imbalance. We get so many crazy stories from the Trump administration, like multiple times a day, and we can't make them blow up. And like, we do decently well, but it's like with that amount of ammunition, you think that their popularity should be 0% at this point. Meanwhile, they have no actual ammunition, like nothing actually happened that we did wrong, and they can blow it up. And so I was just trying to illustrate, like, if we had the kind of ecosystem that they have, we could have done the same thing back to them, right? And I think that's what we should aspire to, actually. I think we should aspire to have so much media firepower on these social media sites that we can make mountains out of molehills if we don't actually have mountains to be talking about. Now, the long-term solution isn't to keep doing this. This is destroying our democracy. This is destroying our country. This is destroying, democracies in Europe. Social media is a cancer for political discourse. It brings out the worst in us and it suppresses the best in us. And I think what we need to do is we need to start talking about ways that we can reform how social media is treated. For instance, I believe it's Section 203 should probably be repealed.
Wait, real quick, Micah, are your notifications on? We keep hearing the bell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
We're getting the bell emoji. Sorry, you were saying which section should be repealed?
I believe it's Section 203 piece. Is that what I'm talking about?
The section
301?
Section 230.
230.
230. There it is. Fantastic.
Yes.
I think that we should definitely be reforming that. And I think
fuck you. Why?
Wait, before you go into that,
go ahead.
Well, I just want to say that we are tethered to the truth and the right isn't. And I think that is always going to be difficult to compete with. They can just say bullshit. They can do whatever. It's really hard for us to compete unless we're willing to lie, which, I'm kind of lukewarm about. So that being said, let's not discount the brilliant job that the Democrats did on the Epstein files recently, for example. I mean, yes, this is a moment for the right, but they've been throwing shit at the wall for a year and nothing has stuck until now. Finally, they had this dipshit Nick Shirley go out with his sunglasses and his boomer friend Dave and try to open some closed doors and say, here's the scam. How do you compete with that? Once in a while, they're going to get a hit. So, I mean, unless we're willing to lie, I don't really see a way to compete.
I want to praise the Democrats on largely the Epstein response, but I have criticism, and you guys know I love AOC, and I like Ro Khanna and respect Ro Khanna quite a bit. I think that they're saying things that we don't know. I think that AOC, when she implies more than she knows regarding what's in the Epstein files, which, again, I think that there's definitely misconduct for sure of Epstein and Maxwell and a few other actors there. But the implications I think that some Democrats have made aren't strictly speaking implications that we know to be true. And in that sense, I am a little worried and perturbed by it. Now, are the memes great? I love the memes. I think the memes are great. I think the questions that people ask, I think like a lot of, when Kyle Kalinske posts memes and shit, that's all fine. What I am concerned with in that IRA and is potentially going too far there against the truth, because once you do that, I think you're leaving yourself open for the other expectation, which is, oh, you guys said that Trump was this or that. What if there's no evidence of that?
Well, that already happened. That ship has sailed, Pisco. That's what the entire narrative of the Russia hoax, even though there's all these indictments, even though like there were very conspicuous ties between backroom meetings and like connections that Trump had, just because there wasn't a conviction, it's like, oh, okay, well, the entire media narrative is lying. The entire left-wing machine is lying.
No, that's different. No, that's so different. In the context of the, go.
There's no punishment for any of this if you get it wrong. And I do want to say I support Micah in that he's saying we need our ecosystem. We need a left-wing social media ecosystem to amplify our party's messaging. And I couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm so critical of criticizing the left, because I'm like, that's, you'll never see the right do that. You'll never see the right attack their own.
I mean, it's happening right now, actually.
True.
For the first time under this administration. But historically, that's been 100% accurate. What I will say is, I think that, right, if we're hoping that truth can survive social media, we're wrong. Like a truth-based social media discourse simply will not happen unless there's some sort of penalty for lying, and there is no penalty. Like right now on Twitter, you go super viral, you get community noted like hours after it's done being viral, and nobody pays attention, and nobody remembers, and nobody cares, and you get a bigger check. And so I think that we should make algorithmic changes to punish, dishonesty. But until that happens, I don't think that a big consideration for the Democratic Party should be, are we being strictly accurate about what's saying? Now, I think as an individual moral person, I think that we should not say things that are not true, but I don't think that we have to, like, there's some sort of evidentiary standard. Like, I say Trump is a pedophile.
Yeah. Why did you say that? Wait. Why did you say that though?
Yeah. Like, I think there's a lot of evidence that he is. Like, he's a person who told Howard Stern. He's somebody who told Howard Stern that he was going into the dressing rooms for underage women at those, beauty pageants that he was hosting. And some of the girls there were as young as 13 years old. That's pedophilic behavior, right? I think if anybody else had as much evidence that they are a pedophile as Donald Trump would, we would say, yeah, over 50% chance they're a pedophile. We're not in a beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah, but I understand. But like when people say he's a pedophile, what they're implying with that in the context of the Epstein files is that he abused children.
Well,
and that is what people get from that. I understand that you can make the argument that the absolutely creepy pedophilic behavior.
Well, also be like civil litigation that says, "Hey, when I was 13, Donald Trump and Epstein raped me." Right? It's like right. It could not be true. It could be completely made up. But it's like this is like under mountains of evidence of all of this sexual misconduct. The things that haven't been disproven, like the fact that he raped his wife, and his wife said,
haven't been disproven. But that's again presupposing the notion that we we don't have a burden to show the claims we're making.
But what Micah is saying is, yeah, sure, we don't have the video of Trump sexually abusing a 13-year-old, but what we do have is mountains and mountains and mountains and mountains of accusations. And it's like, hey, maybe it's not true, but like, I'm not going to, put a silencer on my, gun right now because it's just beneficial for me to say what is evidentially
say something
true to everyone, right?
No, hang on a second. This level of evidence, in some respects, exists for Biden. What you're talking about. Biden touches kids in a creepy and no, I understand they do. Biden, and I don't think that Biden is like trying to pedophilically. We're gonna get fucking. This is not going to be a monetarily viable stream. I don't think that he's trying to like grope these young children when he like sniffs their hair. But just be honest, right? Like people could say, well, there's that thing from his daughter Ashley Biden's diary. Yeah, people might take it out of context, but it's a little weird. It's the videos of him doing that, and I wouldn't come to the conclusion from that, well, therefore Biden's a pedophile. Well, tell me about the nature of the evidence and why you think it would be justified in one sense and not the other.
Is there more than a 50% chance that Donald Trump is a pedophile? Yes or no, Pisco?
I think based on current evidence, no.
Wow. Okay. Now we know who Pisco's current client is. Donald J. Trump.
You think that?
All right. What's your last name, Pisco? Dershowitz? Pisco Dershowitz?
No, fuck Trump. Listen, I think that it's highly likely that Trump knew about stuff with Epstein. I think it's highly likely that, notwithstanding what he knew about Epstein, that he pursued this relationship. I think it's highly likely that Trump has abused women and has raped, by which I mean digitally penetrated a woman that was found to be civilly liable for. So I think that there's plenty of evidence of sexual misconduct from Trump. But if you're going to put a gun to my head and say, do I have the confidence plus 50%? No.
This is such a tangent. Hold on. Let me just bring it back to the Minnesota stuff. I think what Nick Shirley did was genius and actually brilliant. And do you guys think we should be doing stuff like that? Because this is working.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the conservative guy.
Well, we actually
he's the guy with the sunglasses who went to the daycare centers. Yeah,
we do actually have a lot of like in-person documentary style coverage on our side, right? Now, I think that we could use more of it. I think we can use people in the specific side as Nick Shirley. I actually look at tons of different niches filled by right-wing propagandists. And I'm saying, hey guys, we actually don't have those kind of people on our side. So I'm constantly reaching out to people and saying like, hey, like maybe you should do this kind of content.
But I think what guys are getting at, Micah, is do we need the people that are going and just have the most dishonest framing ever? Where they're going to go up and just pretend
total
like they
bullshit.
broke a story that is 2 years old, or like a Project Veritas where we take, undercover interviews and edit them so selectively with all the like the creepy music over it. Like, is that what we need? Is that what we need to fight against what they're doing? Or can we accomplish the same goals and have that media volume without the scummy kind of like discrediting of like, if I saw that, as much as I'd be like, okay, cool. Like, maybe this is convincing a lot of people. I'd be like, I don't I hate this. I hate this. I hate that we're having to do this. I don't want to look at it. And it makes me distrust anyone who's involved in it. Is that what we need?
Yeah, I mean, like, listen, I don't think it's strictly necessary because I think there's so many persuasive arguments to make against Republicans that we can make them totally honestly, and I think that should be our priority. But I do want to draw a distinction. If there are people on our side that are not being strictly the most accurate with what they're saying, I don't have any interest in claim policing them because we have right now the Republican media ecosystem saying that Vance Bolter was a Tim Walz employee who murdered Melissa Hortman because she discovered Somali fraud. And like, while like this is the kind of misinformation that you never see from our side, pretty much ever. I've never seen anything that ridiculous from our side. So I agree.
That justifies a differential in terms of your coverage for sure, no doubt about that. 100% agreed. But if asked, Micah, the way that Mockler will ask Scott Jennings, the way that Mockler will ask other people, like think about the Mamdani stuff. Because people went after Mamdani for some things where I think that there was a good reason to, but sometimes they pushed him to give an answer. Well, what did you mean by this? What did you mean by that? And that was in the context of the race with Cuomo. And when asked, I think that it's important for our politicians to realize where there is defensible ground and where there's potential room for criticism. And even though, truth is a currency that at times it seems like, why the fuck should we even care about it? I wonder if we don't do more harm than good by not trying to say that when asked, we give frank and honest answers.
Yeah, if we can't distinguish ourselves from what we're criticizing, then like it's not a both sides thing. It's like, okay, like can I truly convince Micah, you're at your college and you're trying to convince your lost family member, your Republican friend, like this is why the left is better, not just on policy stuff, because you can look at the consequences of the policy, but like, hey, this is why I want to point to journalism that has integrity and like, will publish retractions and they have degrees and why that's better than alt media. What happens when you can't do that anymore? And it's like, oh, actually, yeah.
I don't think that Vox or any media outlet should ever say anything that's even close to misinformation, right? So like there's different media for different groups, right? There's a media strategy for like highly educated people who really care about politics and try to stay informed. And that's a media strategy that we're winning in. We're doing very well with those voters, and we should keep doing that. And there's a set of people that are not even trying to appeal to those folks. They're trying to appeal to the people that actually are like getting their news from random Facebook memes, which are like totally inaccurate. And a lot of those people believe that the 2020 election was rigged. And so with those people, you just have to take a different strategy. And like, listen, I try to be strictly accurate with whatever I say. But if people are being inaccurate and they're spreading misinformation, and they're being effective at communicating to those folks, is my priority telling them that they should stop? Honestly, no, because the right wingers are doing it at such an enormously bigger volume. And I think the real thing to tackle is not their individual practice. This is like gerrymandering. I'm not going to call out the state of New York for gerrymandering. I'm going to call it the gerrymandering system and try to fix that. And the gerrymandering system in this case is the social media system, which rewards misinformation. Nothing is really going to be solved until we fix that problem. And I don't think that like trying to get the left to unilaterally disarm their misinformation cannons.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I just want to be clear.
I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying this is like kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I hear that on like the focus, and I totally agree with you on the focus. Can we get to section 230 because you just triggered me there when you're saying you want to get rid of it?
Real quick before we do, because this is Josiah's chat has been waiting for a really long time.
Oh shit!
He said $20. Thank you, Josiah. He says, "Do we all agree with Hutch that every 2028 Democratic candidate must publicly commit to ripping Trump's name off of everything?" Also, just side note,
yes, of course.
Micah had a great debate at the UFA event. You should check it out. So everyone go check out Micah's debate. But yeah, Pisco, yes or no?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hutch is absolutely right.
I agree with Hutch as well. All right.
I think they should pledge to dedicate the ballroom to be a homeless shelter or a transgender or something.
Public housing
as well.
A transgender clinic, yeah. A homeless transgender illegal immigrant clinic. I'm okay with that. Yes. What about you, Micah? What do you think?
I totally agree. But honestly, here's the real question. Department of War, Gulf of America, should these things go back? Should the forts go back? I say we just say reverse everything. They had zero respect for anything that we did. I think we should have zero respect for anything they did. And maybe we should like also, I don't know, like should we go all the way and do the portrait gallery? But like this time we have like Chad Biden and like like Chad, whoever, like Gavin Newsom, and like
Well,
have.
I don't think that they should acknowledge Trump as the 47th president. I don't think that he's legally occupying the office, and I wouldn't hang up his portrait from that. I would hang up 45, but I would not hang up 47, and I would try to pass implementing legislation for section 3 of the 14th
I would
Amendment
have like
to
just a
make
sex
that the case.
offender like symbol, like like for
Oh,
sex
like
offenders.
the cover of the Kendrick album.
I'm serious, by the way. No, I would not hang up his portrait for the second term, and I would work to make it official that he wasn't ever legally occupying the office of 47th president and make the next one to be the 47th. I'm dead serious.
Who's your top 28 candidate right now, Micah? I know it's 3 years, a lot can change, but if you had to vote tomorrow, who's at the top of your list?
John Ossoff. I think so. I mean, I look at the Democratic Party. I think that the best candidates are credible anti-establishment outsiders. And John Ossoff gives that kind of vibe. He's like Southern. He talks about how the system has been, rigged by both parties, which I actually think is helpful. I think Trump did something really unique that Democrats need to copy in this respect. He rebranded the party. He said, all these old Republicans sucked, okay? If you don't like them, that's fine. You can come to me now. Right. And that gives people a permission structure to join the party when they didn't like it before. The Democratic Party hasn't had a rebrand since 1992. Bill Clinton said, I'm a new Democrat, F the old Democrats. We've had Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, all connected to each other. We have one continuous brand since 1992. Americans look at the government. They know the Democrats have been in charge half the time, and they say, how can these guys be anti the current establishment when they've been the establishment for 50% of the time? And so John Ossoff, I think, has an opportunity as like a name that people don't really know, as a guy from the South. We can say, to hell with all these old Democrats. I'm a totally new Democrat. And then we can redefine the party to expand a brand once again.
It's funny you mentioned Ossoff because I felt sort of hints of Ossoff in how you styled your populism there, where it was more about corruption and broken in the sense of people at the top, not from the perspective of necessarily a class structure, although that the hints of that perhaps, but a focus on corruption and not playing by the same rules, which was very much a part of Ossoff, this famous speech now that he gave. And so that's interesting that you pick Ossoff.
I want to raise this question though from chat because this is kind of what I was thinking. Is like, why is Obama not the rebranding? Because of him saying, "Hey, you didn't get any change, and I'm going to come in here and change everything." Like, just like, how is he not that outsider? He didn't have ties to the Clintons really. Like, he was a brand new senator, like fresh in. He wasn't really deep in the establishment. Why was his brand not redefining by your definition?
2008, he was a rebrand, and then the rebrand didn't stick, right? So like Obama was an extraordinary candidate in 2008. He did really well. He probably overperformed what we would have done with Hillary Clinton by a couple points. And it's because he did that credible outsider stuff. But after that, he got very much in bed with a brand. And like, it didn't really seem like the Obama shtick was like anti the existing Democratic Party and the system anymore. It's kind of something you have to renew all the time. Like, each candidate's got to really do it, and it's got to look credible. I think Bernie Sanders was a very credible outsider. And so like, we need something like that. Now, the question is there going to actually be strife between Ossoff and the Democratic brand for a little while to actually make it look like an outsider? Who knows?
No. There's not going to be. And I think you're probably right in some of the brand that Obama rebranded in 2008 there, Soy Pill. But I think Biden doesn't get enough credit because Biden was the person, I think, who more than anything, like, fundamentally shifted a kind of consensus that had emerged, even though it was informed by some sort of Trumpian impulses. He focused on domestic production, investment in domestic industry, and in sort of these calculated tariffs, in addition to a focus on anti-monopoly.
But as a brand, I would call that
I totally agree. Brand wise, he was seen as kind of an extension of Obama, and I wish that the brand were different because Biden really represents a sea change in how the Democrats operated for a long time, influenced, frankly, a lot by Bernie, some by the Trumpian populist input. But it's so tragic in some ways that he doesn't get any credit.
Right? They tried. Right? They called him the most progressive president, and like, for a lot of things, it's true, and a lot of these things that like are like, wow, he worked with these unions and he shifted all this infrastructure back, and this is great.
Pro-labor, very much.
The fact that you have to bring that up and correct people because most people don't even know, is because of the failure of the brand. But yeah, I
No,
do
I
agree.
agree,
He
yeah.
deserves that credit.
I just wanted to segment out the brand definition and the policy definition. In
But
terms
those
of
are
yeah.
definitely different things.
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
But I think rhetorically, Biden and future candidates could really use sounding like they're really against the status quo and they're really against the existing system because Americans hate it. Like, you should always be against the things that are unpopular insofar that you can be, right? And it's like the right position. And you should make sure that you're never defined by presence. You're being unified with the status quo. I think one of the reasons why Trump is very durable support with a certain percentage of the population is they see him as the guy that's against everything that sucks, which is the status quo. And so we kind of want that sort of thing. We don't want to just like have a base of the Democratic Party that like likes our candidate insofar that like they have, I don't know, like good policy or like they're making the right policy. That's too weak of a foundation for a political coalition, in my view. And it's kind of a weak brand. That's the reason why it kind of fell apart for Biden. Like, Biden's policies, according to a lot of wonks, were pretty decent, but that's not enough to keep your political support up.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Section 235. Oh, go ahead, Guy. Last thing, and then section.
Well, my only
235.
concern with Ossoff is he doesn't seem to be able to capture like any attention. He's not a big showman. Like, for example, Mark Kelly or even Ruben Gallegos seem to be able to get attention and to stand out. And I worry that Ossoff is a little too chill. But I do agree he's an interesting guy and he's won in a tough state and he's got the resume for sure. But you see him like maybe latching on to some sort of topic or maybe getting some attention because you got to have like a standout moment,
Well, he's given some good speeches that have done very well. Now, if you're asking me, like, do I think that his current media strategy is super effective? No, it's not. Like, we barely hear about him. But maybe that's on purpose, right? Like, he has some good people on his staff. I know Parker Short works for him, and Parker really understands this stuff.
Parker who?
Parker Short.
Parker, he was the one jamming out at the
he's a great guy.
Kamala rally, right? Yeah,
He really
he's a
understands.
nice guy.
Oh, wait, the Parker, the influencer?
Yeah.
He works for Ossoff.
He does work
No,
for
not
Ossoff.
Parker get a job.
You haven't
Different
seen
Parker.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
Parker.
I was going to say it would be way too on the nose if you had a Harry and his last name is Sisson, like Sissy, and then Short is the other one. Like, no, this is a different guy.
So, but what I'm saying is it might actually be part of his strategy to be kind of lower key to win this Senate race. I think having a national Democratic brand that Republicans attack probably leads to a lower likelihood of Republican voters crossing the aisle and voting for him. That's a potentiality. But generally speaking, I look at the Democratic field. I don't think anybody has the balance right. I think Gavin understands the media strategy, but he's just not the right person to do this credible outsider stuff and like do this kind of more, I think, populism from the center that I think we need. I think Ossoff is the right person, but I don't think he has the right strategy. And the good thing is that we have 3 years to figure this out.
Wait, what's your problem with before we get to 230 stuff? The lefties, the AOCs, you're wanting to centrist populist for reasons that are probably obvious in terms of sort of your preferred set of policies. But is that basically it, that you think that AOC at all, the squad, are out to sea in policy?
Yeah, I think Bernie Sanders has the kind of vibes that can win. I actually think Bernie's like, I mean, if he was younger, he'd be a fantastic political candidate.
Would you support him? Would you be like, oh, that's the guy?
I mean, I'm anti-fascist, so I support anybody who's like left of.
I know, but
Like
you're going to be a great politician, Micah.
Like,
Specifically, Mike, and this is why I'm asking. I'm fucking forcing you. Is not the question as between the fascists and the any Democratic candidate. The question is among the Democratic candidates, young Bernie Sanders, an AOC type. What is stopping you? Those who do have the charisma portion, they have the populist rhetoric. And some might even say that they're honorable people, a lot of these people. What's stopping you from going with them?
Well, I think they might be worse on policy, but I actually think that there's a huge difference between Bernie and AOC in terms of electability. Like, if I thought Bernie was going to be the most electable candidate and he was younger, then I would choose him over any of the other candidates any day, just because we have to win against these people because they're.
Oh, shit.
Oh, no, he was making a really salient point.
Yeah, he was making a
Deep
salient
state
point.
got
on
him.
certain things, right?
To be fair, everything.
Wait, Micah, you were saying
you got interrupted.
You were talking about electability. That obviously, if electability were if that were predominating, you would pick the person who's going to be elected the most. But factor that in.
Yeah. So like, I think Bernie like could be if it was clear that there was no other candidate that was closer to me ideologically, and Bernie was the one that was going to be the most electable, then I'd support him 100%. I think AOC is less electable than Bernie. I think a lot of like working class Americans, I'm from the South, a lot of them like Bernie and they actually think he's a cool and trustworthy guy. And they think of AOC as more woke. I think wokeness and immigration are things that we've been hit really hard on in terms of our brand. And I think people just look at Bernie and they don't really feel like he wants open borders, and they don't really feel like he's like, wants to make all the kids trans or something. And when they look at AOC, especially with the amount of clips that she has, like, during peak woke, I think that it's going to be way easier for her brand to not really become about these economic issues and these class issues, rather become more about this like woke brand, which is her.
Because of the clips, or because she's a woman?
I think it's because she's a woman, Latina, who talks a certain way. And I also think it's because of the clips. It's a combination. And like we could say like, oh, I don't like that. Like it's not just being a woman. It's about-
Michael, let me jump in just to be clear, and in case anyone's just misinterpreting. This is exactly what I've been saying every time we bring it up, which is not, I don't like that she's a woman. I don't like that she's Latina. I think she's too standoffish. It's there is a media right-wing machine that has weaponized the wokeness, Latina, woman stuff against her for the past 8 years, and that is going to hurt her, not because of anything she has done, but because all of those things are easy to weaponize against people who are bigoted. And I think that's like not as easy to do with Bernie. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Micah?
I think that's totally what I'm getting at. And it's just like these are just different features of her as a person that make it more easy to convince somebody that she wants open borders, that she's woke, and all these things than Bernie. Like people just are not totally fair about these things, right? It's how your voice sounds. It's just your age. It's how you look. And I think like even somebody like Nikki Haley that had AOC's ideology probably would be less prone to these attacks. It's not just being a woman. It's not just being a woman of color. It's specifically AOC. Now, am I still convinced that she's a bad candidate? Maybe not. I think she has a lot of charisma, and like honestly, she might be better than a lot of other folks in the field. But I just do think there's a distinction worth drawing between Bernie and AOC, despite the fact that they have such a similar ideology.
We just got to bring woke back even harder. That's what I say.
What about Tallarico versus Crockett?
I absolutely support James Tallarico. I encourage James. I used to be part of the executive committee of the Texas Democratic Party, so this is very much my space. I'm a type 1 diabetic. James is a type 1 diabetic, actually.
Is that the one where it's your fault or it's genetic?
It's not his fault. It's genetic.
Well, but then Micah, why do you think Crockett is running? She's burning the boats. She's not going to be in Congress if she doesn't win. So I don't think she's a dummy. I think she's super smart. She's a rising star. Why do you think she's running?
Well, she's running because the black primary voters are huge and dominant in Texas politics. I mean, we saw in Harris County, the biggest county in Texas, that candidates that were African-American women with no money were taking out incumbent judges with tons of money in primary races, 60-40, winning by 20 points. So we see the African-American voting bloc very much supports candidates from their community, and they're extremely powerful. And I think it gives Jasmine a huge advantage. I'm hoping that we could piece together a coalition for James Tallarico, though, because I think ultimately he is the much more electable candidate. Also, I agree with him more ideologically.
See, that was the easy question, all right? I ask you the easy question. I'm going to give you the hard one, so I'm just going to go and say it. Janet Mills, Graham Plattner.
I mean, I think Graham Plattner has serious judgment issues with the tattoos that he's made, with the things that he said. I think he's...
I agree, by the way. Totally agree. Go ahead.
But I think in terms of rhetoric and the brand, I think I ideologically disagree with him a lot more. But I think he's like the brand he's pushing, the way he looks, the way he talks.
Right. I mean, that's what you're kind of going for in some ways. Even notwithstanding the judgment problems, which really, really concern me. But it sounds like you're leaning Plattner.
And also, Susan is super old. I mean, she can serve one term maybe. So I think probably he's better. I mean, if we're convinced that he's really not a Nazi and like he's actually going to vote for us, and we're not going to get another Fetterman scenario where like some total insane person in office. But I totally understand people that like on a principled judgment call just can't support somebody with such a storied history of decisions.
But can I defend Crockett for 1 second, just to play devil's advocate? She is an outsider. She's hot. She's new. I know. I don't mean hot like physically, but she's exciting.
You don't think she's hot?
You don't think
Isn't
she's
she
hot?
got that anti-establishment, like shake the whole system up? Because James Tallarico's been around for a while. No, right?
I mean, I think that she's been around longer than he has, honestly, in politics. But
really,
the reality is normal voters don't like Jasmine Crockett. Her rhetoric is not particularly strong or effective. She talks about how we can't deport undocumented people because black people won't go back to picking cotton. The undocumented immigrants need to. That is a terrible message.
Yikes.
For it's an awful message.
I didn't know she said that. That's
she says, I don't need to pick
I
up
wasn't
swing
gonna-
voters. The truth is, yes, swing voters are not your partisan Republican father. They are low information voters that voted for Trump. And absolutely, we need to pick them up mathematically to win. On certain policies like housing, she's nothing like James Talarico. Talarico gets it. She doesn't. On Israel, she doesn't get it. Talarico does. And I also think Talarico is targeting a specific demographic that we've been failing with for a long time, which is Christians. I have a super Christian background. There's a lot of Christians that are receptive to a message that's targeted specifically to them against Republicans. Nobody's provided it to them except James Talarico, and I think it has a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
That's the.
I
I
can
think
see
that's
why
the
Hutch
most
picked
convincing
you.
pitch. That's the
yeah,
most
this
convincing
is-
pitch I've gotten. Can we do 2:30 at some point? What the fuck is wrong with you, dude? You want to just like have no free speech?
I mean, yeah.
Wait,
so-
real quick. Wait. For context, for the can I explain what 230 is
Yes.
for the layman? Right, like 230 is that we don't treat these internet companies, so X or Twitter or YouTube or any of these things, like they are publishers in the same way New York Times or any of these other like newspapers are, which is to say that what is published on those things, they are not held responsible for those things said. Is that more or less?
Yeah, it's a
before getting into the
liability.
legalese?
Yeah, it's a liability shield for certain kind of providers, including ISPs, including what are traditionally referred to as social media platforms. So that terminology is not in the statute itself, but yeah, it's a liability shield that more or less operates in the way that you suggest.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you, Micah, are in favor of reforming this in order to kind of fix the algorithm and make it so there's not so much Republican slop getting shoved in our faces.
Yeah, I don't think that we should pass explicit algorithmic regulation, but I do think that being able to restore the ability for people to sue social media platforms for negligence would be a good thing. And the reason why I think that is there's a lot of acts of political violence and crimes that harm people that are the result of the algorithms of these platforms. And by introducing potential liability for that algorithm whenever those things are produced, that would incentivize incentivize social media platforms to reform their algorithm. Now, the counter argument to my position is they're going to just shut down political discourse, or they're going to silence people, and it's going to be really bad.
Wait, I kind of like that though.
I'm going to make two
Imagine
arguments.
filtering all politics out of social media. I know there's a lot of downstream bad things, and I'm kind of taking the piss, but at the same time, like, imagine if you had to talk politics in strictly political outlets on strictly political channels, and like it wasn't getting shoved in your face on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Like,
Yeah. Like, I'm going to make two arguments. One argument is my ideal world, and the other argument is if we only can repeal Section 230. I think my ideal world, we actually have a social media bill of rights to make sure there's certain protected speech and protection from discriminatory algorithmic enforcement and banning. I think Elon Musk tomorrow can purge liberals, and there's really no cause of action that we have against him. I don't think that he should have that kind of power. And I think that having the repeal of Section 230 and free speech rights on these platforms would counterbalance each other. So maybe we're getting rid of violent rhetoric, explicit calls, that are hatred and, expressing hatred and prejudice, but we're also protecting actually valuable political discourse. But if we can't do that, yes, the truth is the likely result is huge censorship on these platforms, mass banning, maybe a politics entirely. I think that's better than the status quo. We're witnessing the absolute destruction of our politics, not just in the United States, but around the world, because social media elevates misinformation and promotes divisive messages, and it really makes everything worse. I talk to Republicans in person. I talk to Republicans online. It's night and day, daylight and darkness. It's evil online. It's normal in person. And so the reality is this is hurting our politics. There's no doubt that social media is having a net negative impact on our politics. And if we can either choose between the status quo and it basically going away, I prefer for it to go away.
I think it's complete bullshit because the end result of it, is going to be one, transferring power to litigants, deep pocket litigants, who are not going to have this kind of socially beneficial sort of perspective that we would think that they want to like fairly hold these social media companies accountable, though they can be held accountable in different kinds of ways through different kinds of regulations. You mentioned one as that even Clarence Thomas seems to agree with, is regulating them as almost like utilities, that kind of shit. Those kinds of regulations can be enacted and things like this. But this is specifically treating them as the publisher of content for which they have like sort of interactive users. And that is just going to cause the amount of discourse on these sites to dramatically decrease and more draconian restrictions to be put in place at the times when the tech companies are in the hands of totally fucking freako weirdo conservatives who are bending the knee to Trump. The courts are in the hands of conservatives, and you want to give power to the courts to adjudicate issues where conservatives are probably going to be suing the platforms to be more infringing of speech of Democrats and left-wing people. I think it's totally insane. We want to.
Well, no, we're going to sue too. I mean, we're going to sue like whenever somebody incites violence. For instance,
it goes to the Supreme Court, Micah. This is going to be a federal cause of, someone from will bring this before the federal courts. I know that it's a matter of tort law, state law, whatever. But there's going to be some embedded federal issue. And
I think it's only going to be state law, right? Because it's a tort claim. State Supreme Court.
There are federal cause of actions, perhaps, that you could bring, and even putting that aside, what? So now, like the most conservative states, so all the different, because remember, these companies are going to be hewing to the most restrictive kinds of states regulations. They want a uniform policy. So we're either going to think, okay, these tech companies are going to have different policies in different states according to the state like tort law of Texas versus California, and the end result is just going to be they're going to cut their losses. They're going to cut their losses and just start censoring all kinds of bullshit that shouldn't be censored. It's going to give more of an input.
Let me give a question to both of you that maybe will make you think about this. So for Pisco, they already do that kind of like with different countries, right? Like the laws of Twitter in America are different than in Turkey, than in countries with more censorship, and they have to capitulate to that. I don't know which countries they've completely pulled out of. It seems like for the most part, it's more beneficial for them to capitulate to whatever that government is. But while you're thinking of that, Micah, I guess to Pisco's point, what happens when you're in Texas and they've said, hey, we now say that saying that transgender people are valid is a call to violence because that is saying that you're going to come after a child and mutilate them. Therefore, you cannot even mention transgenders on,
as a matter
Twitter.
Of Texas state tort law.
Yeah, as just as a matter of fact, versus like, but saying that the election was stolen, that's totally fine, right? Like now you're gonna there's a lot of ways that this could go really bad, where you and I could agree, yeah, maybe if there's just no politics on any of these platforms, it might be better. We could go back to the happy web when there was all these different websites and your boomer dad wasn't trying to like spread the loose change documentary about 9/11, but it seems like it could go very bad in a lot of different ways.
I mean, what I think about is negligence liability. If we could rewrite this in some sort of way where we preserve negligence liability, but maybe you exempt the ability for states to create these insane causes of action, I think that's totally fair. But I think of a specific case. There was the Colorado shooting, which happened, one of many shootings by a white supremacist 15 or 16-year-old, a neo-Nazi who was inspired by some rhetoric that he had seen on platforms, including X. I think X should be liable for those kids' death if they were negligent in the content they were feeding him. And I think what we'd see is there would be obviously a crackdown. But here's the reality. We're seeing a huge radicalization of young people towards Nazi ideology, towards Holocaust denial. There's even a guy at my school that I was talking to who genuinely believes that the Holocaust didn't happen and the Jews controlled the world. And this is because of social media. None of this stuff would be happening if it wasn't for social media.
Yeah, but we can't litigate that. The government should litigate that, right? I mean, we need to teach our kids these things and have good people in power. But what you're suggesting is that the government should have a role to decide what is true and what is not about the Holocaust.
I'm not saying that. Actually, your idea of a regulatory policy, and let's give some sort of agency discretion over regulating social media companies, is far more dangerous than what I'm advocating, because that would give an executive administration like Trump, under unitary executive theory, the ability to actually unilaterally determine the regulations that are applied to social media platforms. I don't want the state to have that power. I want juries to have the power to determine what's negligent.
But it won't be
the same juries that are being influenced by the media that you say is like making them kind of negligent themselves, right?
I think juries are I trust juries way more in determining what kind of behavior by social media platforms is irresponsible than I do trust a regulatory agency, which may be led by Trump or Vance.
This is the kind of theory of culpability, which I think is not good for policy reasons to go down. So, for example, why wouldn't this apply to the Charlie Kirk shooter? I mean, it's dangerous rhetoric to call him a fascist, and regardless of, and there's a proximity between what he said. Why couldn't this lead, for example, negligence suits against Discord? For the,
Yeah,
for the-
what I think would happen if you fully repeal this, I mean, I think you might want to have an exemption for like messaging platforms. I think like the standard of negligence might just be different for those different types of platforms. I don't think it should be universal. Like obviously different platforms are different and juries will approach them differently. Maybe you want to have some sort of carve out for specifically messaging platforms, which are kind of
then what differentiates Discord from Twitter? If Twitter is just a Discord thread, but in a longer, more
there is
spread
like
out
there's some
form,
clear
right?
things that delineate.
And now you're expecting a jury to understand the distinctions between these things and apply this in a even and understanding. Like,
but you're saying this like it's something that's like totally foreign. Negligence.
I just think it's idealistic.
Tort liabilities applies to everything except for this exemption that we've written. Like it already works this way for literally everything else. The question is, should we exempt these companies from any responsibility for their own behavior or not? This is a special exemption that we provide them. And I think no. I think we have a similar exemption for firearm companies. I don't think that firearm manufacturers should be exempted from negligence liability. Now, like the standard of negligence that we apply to them is going to be different based on the platform. And I don't know, maybe we could have some sort of limitations for specific ones, but I think there should be some sort of application. You have a different negligence cause of action for the different types of platforms. Like a publisher versus Twitter are going to should be treated.
Here's what I'm concerned about. Like I'm concerned in the aspect, maybe if you made a carve out, okay, no Section 230 protections as relates, giving access to minors to this group of I don't want to say CSAM people, that kind of stuff. Maybe if you have it carve out to the specific kind of worries that we're talking about, but the worries that you cited aren't those kind of more tailored, more specific. What about the children type stuff? It's like social media generally. Misinformation generally. You see these social media organizations as engines for misinformation and disinformation. And I don't trust, because it's not going to be juries deciding this. It's going to be conservative state judges as a matter of law, overturning sometimes jury decisions.
Why do you not consider liberal judges as part of this mix?
No, because to the extent that liberal judges are imposing liability for conservative type decisions, you're going to see the reaction on the other side for the conservative states and the tech companies, which are already at this point, they're bending the knee to the conservatives and they're like fucking out there and freakoids. They're going to bend the knee, I think, and just make it so that the standards are way, 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 way higher and all sorts of fucking bans and restrictions. And we're going to go back to the days, or I don't know if we're ever there. I think that's a kind of misinformation. We're going to go to the actual things that conservatives were saying that they were concerned about during COVID and shit, which is like, no one can say anything. Like we can't give out like truthful information. And that's going to be fucked up in the context of a looming fascist threat. I think we want to keep those channels open as opposed to having them closed by tech overlords because they're scared of products liability and negligence suits.
Yeah, I mean, I think what would happen, realistically speaking, is leftists get banned, Destiny gets perma banned, Groypers get banned, a bunch of right wingers get banned. Like most people get banned, frankly. Like Philip DeFranco keeps his account.
Yeah, how is that good?
And I think right now, like I said, my preference is to have a Bill of Rights for social media users that counterbalances these two things. But if you had to ask me, do I think that basically everybody but like centrist news accounts getting banned versus the status quo, which one's better? I think absolutely almost everybody getting banned. I actually think social media is genuinely destroying our country and it's making policy worse. It's radicalizing people. It's making people meaner and hate each other. We're locked into all of these isolated social media bubbles that are directly contributing to acts of political violence because of the radicalization that it's ensuing. And I think that what would happen is mainstream media, journalists, actual media companies would be restored as having a lot more power in our country. Journalists actually have some sort of filter and epistemic commitments to being more interested in the truth. And I think that they're much better, honestly, than social media.
Won't, Micah. What'll happen is all the users will go to sketchy foreign websites which are outside the reach of America's jurisdiction. They're gonna keep using the internet. It's not like the internet's gonna go.
You think
away.
everybody? So like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, like TikTok nukes politics. And we all go to like some random Chinese website somewhere that the government.
There will be websites where people will find ways to talk about things that they want to talk about. I don't, and I think the cat's out of the bottle in the sense of the internet. It's like people who are trying to put in these, ban encryption, right? Ban encrypted passwords, or allow there to be a bypass for like encryption just exists, or like AI, ban AI. Like someone out there to which you're going to have access, unless you're like foreseeing some kind of great wall of like the China does with their internet shit. They're going to have websites or different platforms to be able to communicate through the internet, the kind of things that they're doing. And I'm not so sure that our experience, like there were massive ban waves of certain types of people and certain types of ideas, anti-vax ideas, for example, in certain places. And I don't think that the result in our experience has showed that that's been helpful in clamping it down. And to the extent that social media itself is a problem, that's just the cat is so out of the bag there that I don't know what we can do about that.
Can I give you an alternative proposal that we might agree on? Can we at least require social media companies to have mutual interoperability, like what we do with Wi-Fi, the internet, like what we do with email? Right now, it doesn't matter whether you use Gmail or Outlook, you can communicate with each other. It doesn't matter what browser you use. You parse one common sense of data, which is, the World Wide Web, right? We're all using kind of the same database so we can communicate with each other. Could we have the possibility?
I would be more in support of that interoperability. Like I would like USB-C is like the standard charging thing. I'm okay with those kinds of standards if they're content neutral.
So here's what I'm saying. Like, I think one of the reasons why social media is so bad is because it's naturally monopolistic. A lot of people didn't like Elon's takeover of X. They don't like what he's done with the platform. If he banned a bunch of liberals arbitrarily, at least if it wasn't a super critical mass, he probably could get away with it. And nobody would leave, right? Because they're so entrenched into the natural monopoly of Twitter.
It literally happened, Micah, right? Like when he started banning those liberal journalists because they were reporting about his flight logs, and he called it like his assassination coordinates. And it was this massive ban wave of like just strictly left-wing journalists.
Right. I've had friends that have been banned for basically no reason, and there's like no recourse. What if we could transfer our following and who we follow to a different platform, which had a different algorithm, which parsed the same set of data, which is all connected to each other differently with a different algorithm? So maybe somebody could create a truth-based social media site, and instead of us having all of this,
social.
Like, yeah, sure. But like we could say, hey guys, maybe the way that we fix this is we all switch to this site, and we can actually encourage people to do it. And there could be a movement around doing it.
And that's why everyone's on Blue Sky, Micah, because of how bad Twitter has gotten.
Well, yeah. I mean, not really, but
I was saying it sardonically because it's like no one's there because everyone's on Twitter. The ecosystem exists. I think again, this is now being serious. I think what you're saying is incredibly idealistic insofar as you're underestimating the monopolistic nature of all of these platforms, and no one is going to en masse go to Vimeo and Blue Sky.
What I'm saying, but I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm saying this is the current problem, and we need a policy that solves it. The reason why we can't have these transfers to Blue Sky and we can't have transfers to other platforms is because you have to go rebuild your following. You have to go follow all these people, right? You have to rebuild your experience there. And a lot of times the friends that you have there are not there anymore, right? They're not on this new website. If we require them to be mutually interoperable, which the system already exists for this, they're trying to do this with the metaverse platforms. You could just directly transfer all of your followers and everybody you're following to the new website. I can interact with your posts that you're posting on X on Snapchat or whatever, right? It's one common database of information that each different social media company has access to, just like what we do with the web. There's a lot of thinkers that have talked about this idea, and I think a government policy that requires it would be maybe the least invasive way to maybe get at.
Maybe, Micah. This is what I'm trying to avoid. I am trying to limit the amount of bottlenecks that exist for bad faith actors in our system to take hold of, whether that's bottlenecks in the form of certain kinds of regulation. I'll just to respond to your point about regulation there. I think what I'm proposing isn't necessarily, strictly speaking, a regulatory body to do rules in the sense of some kind of agency, a traditional federal agency, but more like what you suggested, which was like a Bill of Rights for which there is a cause of action, but on behalf of the user, with respect to their interactions with the platform specifically, not them standing in the shadow for someone else. I want to reduce bottlenecks because I think that the decentralization, both in terms of the state versus the federal experience in the age of Trump, has been our one shield. Decentralize who they can target. If we're all saying this, they can't go after all of us at the same time. If we're all fucking if the states have their own areas of sovereignty, then Trump can't fuck everything up. If the states have a say in the elections, then Trump can't do all that shit. That's what I'm worried about. And I think the more bottlenecks, and once you analogize, and once you like make a union of the actions between some service provider, including ISPs, by the way, this isn't just platforms. Section 230 doesn't just protect platforms, it protects ISPs. If ISPs now are having to make considerations from the perspective of negligence with respect to the content that people who are connected to the internet, now we're talking about like very dangerous bottlenecks where there could be massive lawsuits to the very providers of our internet for political and bad faith motives. And these people will settle, right? The organizations will settle, the journalists will settle, CBS will settle. I'm just giving examples of institutions that settled. Amazon, these people, right? Facebook, these are not good guys. And the liability shield, I know on the surface of it, it seems to protect the platforms themselves, but I really do think it's a protection of ourselves, and we should be careful not to create more bottlenecks.
So what did you think about my policy
on the interoperability?
Yeah,
I think it would need to require a certain amount of active users, and I think I would need to think about it some more, because I do think that there are also self-standing First Amendment concerns in, a platform wants to be its own thing, and I want to now I think at a certain level of scale we can start to talk about them more as utilities perhaps, and maybe that would help justify the legal argument, but I'm skeptical of it being applied to every single.
I mean, maybe not like super small sites. Maybe, I mean, to me it seems like there is a huge monopoly problem with social media. And I think our problems with social media are so large that we can't just say, there's nothing that we can do about it. I agree that no regulatory agency should have discretion to go after social media sites and tell them what they're
that we agree on.
That's a huge danger. I also think that saying, there's nothing we can do about the status quo, I don't think that's tolerable at all, because we're seeing so much harm, and we're seeing the global rise of populism pretty much everywhere. And it's probably not very good for us. We're seeing the rise of the far right pretty much everywhere. That's probably not very good for us either. And I think it's in large part, increased and supported by the social media algorithm, which is not neutral. It's not message neutral. It elevates certain types of messages, angry messages, divisive messages. It rewards misinformation, because misinformation is actually more interesting than true information. And so, yes, I floated some pretty radical ideas here. I don't pretend to have like the best solution to these things, but to me, I prefer maybe a radical change from the status quo than the status quo. And I think we have to at least do something. And I hope we can.
I'm here to consider it, and I appreciate you being good humor about the critique. But
with the weekly IRI and soy pill judges will step in and intervene and say, who won the debate? IRI, who convinced you?
I think. Oh, hold on.
By the way, my audience is exactly 50-50 split.
I think. Wait, really?
Very good ones. Yeah.
I think they're both make great points, but my concern is none of this is going to happen until Democrats take back power and we get more moderate people.
No, IRI, they're proposing it. The Democrats right now, the loser Democrats, the one Sheldon Whitehouse, who Josiah loves. What is he doing? He's proposing this bipartisan fucking. It might pass under Trump. I don't even.
We got to get up that 18% approval rating up before we do any of these ideas. But I say we play the game as it exists now, and we go harder in the paint than these Republicans. We get 100 Nick Shirleys out there doing these bullshit investigations.
So true.
You know what I mean?
No, it won't happen, because all the sites will like not list it unless you're, I don't know, you talk to their lawyers before you post shit. It'll be fucking. It will be. I mean, it will jeopardize Soy Pill's job. It will jeopardize.
Unemploy us all. This is how you know how.
So
my chances. My job. I'm giving up big law.
Got the dead man switch on. He wants to blow himself up with everyone else. He's like, get me out of here.
I told
become a lawyer.
I told all the big law firms, like, fuck off. Listen, I'm going to go be a social media influencer because I believe in this shit so hard. Yes, it would destroy me and Adam and everybody else's career. Is it? But like the real goal is what's good for the country, Pisco. And I'm a real patriot. But you guys just witnessed a full lawyer debates a 1/6 of a lawyer
on policy
social media
on policy. And listen, I don't want to grant that you're stupid on policy, Micah. I respect what you do. And what's this?
Well, this is the Internet Bill of Rights. Not to like uber shill for him more, but I'm curious. Have you guys seen this, or like, what are your thoughts on whether or not this is like close to maybe like the middle of what you are both advocating for? So, the idea of, I can just start reading. There's only
Yeah,
10
read them.
points here. Yeah. So, one, to have access and knowledge of all collection and uses of personal data by companies. I think that one's pretty straightforward. Like, Europe has already instituted some of this, which is why they have to ask for your permission when you go on all new websites now. Two, to opt in consent to the collection of the personal data and sharing with a third party. Three,
Yeah, that's fine.
where context appropriate and with a fair process, to obtain, correct, or delete personal data. So that's why you get all these, like VPN and what is it, PIA, all these people that are like, hey, we'll delete all your data just to have this be kind of the standard default. Four, to have personal data secured and notified in a timely manner, security breach. So this is all personal data stuff. Six is interesting, starting to get to what you guys are talking about. Access to use the internet without internet service providers blocking, throttling, engaging in paid prioritization, or otherwise unfairly favoring content, application services.
This is known as net neutrality.
Yeah. So in the way that this is like, hey, you can't throttle like the Facebook competitor because Facebook gives you money. Do you think also this could somehow be applied algorithmically, where it's like, hey, we are not going to prioritize engagement bait, or it's like, I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a time where Facebook, I'm sure they've always had some sort of algorithm, but back in the day, Facebook just kind of showed you what your friends were posting, and it would just kind of showed up like a timeline. And that was it, It wasn't like, oh, here's the biggest likes, or it was just like, hey, my friend posted something.
The problem is, like,
538.
It feels like these algorithms are always making decisions and favoring certain content on some level, right? And it has to do with the views it gets, but that is a function of human psychology and behavior, right? It is choosing for the things that get the most. It's not like as sort of purposeful in the sense of trying to shift. Maybe there's some ways in which TikTok does it. I don't know if they have like a fucking login, whatever. But how the algorithm works, I think, is a lot of it is a function of human behavior and what they choose to select for. And any kind of algorithm is going to make some sort of selection criteria. And so I just think that these things should be thought of more and specified a little bit more. And I'm concerned with potentially making too many requirements that'll stifle speech. That's all I'm saying.
So Pisco is not just a defense attorney for Donald Trump against Epstein case.
Big tech.
Attorney for
no, because I don't trust them. I don't trust these motherfuckers, and I don't trust the judges either. And you shouldn't. You shouldn't trust the state judges.
This is a fundamentally conservative mindset about what these policies can go wrong, and I actually appreciate it. I think it's super helpful.
I love the game, Micah.
You want a Micah in the room. Micah says blow everything up. Pisco says that's a fucking awful
Micah says Destiny should be banned. You just said that, didn't you?
No, which somebody in the comments said, I think only the right's going to get censored with these tools. Absolutely not true. I think I might get banned. I think everyone's going to get banned. And I honestly just think everybody getting banned is better than nobody getting banned.
I want to be able to debate online.
That is the idealistic. Only everyone gets banned or no one gets banned, where in actuality it might be, hey, only the people that are important voices are getting banned, and instead we get even more disinformation. That's what we're worried about. But who can say what would happen? We're coming to a close here, but I noticed the first thing in the title, which we haven't talked about at all, so we could talk about very briefly, is that there are Ukraine peace talks going on. I think it's kind of a meme though to say like the reason we're going to spend no time on this is nothing new is happening. It seems like it's not going to happen. What are you guys takes on this?
It's so funny because I'll go for it.
I saw I think he's the ambassador to Ukraine under Obama, McFall, and he was on PBS NewsHour this weekend saying this is going to lead to nothing, and they'll still be fighting a year from now. So it doesn't seem like much to me.
I remember this guy, Ryan Mullally, who you guys know, or some of you may know, where he was like, isn't it good that Trump has come out and said that Ukraine shouldn't give up a little bit of territory? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why are you celebrating this? Like, A, it's happened, or B, he's not going to reverse his stance next week. And so the one thing that is consistent about this entire, the way that Trump has reacted to the Ukraine conflict is there is no promise that you can count on from Trump. The position could easily flip next week. And until you see the troops leave Ukrainian borders, and even after, by the way, they signed the deal, CC, Gaza, Palestine, all that stuff, don't trust that it will be implemented fairly and in the spirit of the agreement. And so you really just need to be skeptical the entire way. And I have high amounts of doubts that they're going to be able to come to some sort of resolution.
Micah?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm happy that Trump's moved away from his previous position on this issue, which was the haha, Ukraine, please kill yourself and lose immediately deal that he pushed, which is literally drafted by the Russians. I mean, I can't believe we're not even talking about that anymore. That was totally insane. He kind of switches, you know, and I think it's just depending on whether it's like JD Vance and Stephen Miller in his ear or Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is like, kill all the Ruskies, and Trump becomes based for like 45 seconds. And then he goes back to all the other retards in the room, which are like, oh, Zelensky's actually Hitler, by the way. And it's like Ukraine should like not exist anymore. And Putin is actually a super cool, sexy guy. Look at this picture of him shirtless on a horse. And so like, yeah, like I don't think he's going to solve the conflict. I think the best hope is that Europe
day one,
continues growing a pair, and eventually they get a resolution to the conflict.
Well, I think that Zelensky should give him like the Ukrainian Peace Prize, and like just they'll end the conflict the next day, just like how FIFA did it, so they could get some favors from him, right?
That was wild, man.
Like it's they joke about it, like, you know, in South Park, and it isn't saying that our president is a child, but like it seems to work. Like if you really kind of suck up to him, like
Epstein said as much in the
Ukraine medal.
Did you see that Epstein email where it's like all you have to do is like praise him, and I'll tell you what to say to the Russian ambassador or whatever. Like the dude is so predictable, and yeah, all it takes is some fucking fake. Did you hear about his golf tournaments that he invents for himself? That he's like the victor of the,
like Kim Jong-un, or it's like
he like
a hole in one on every putt.
Yes.
What do you mean?
He invents new tournaments and then lies about how well he's doing them in them, and so that he wins them.
Yeah,
this guy has issues, and he is like not well in the head, but we elected him.
Good thing he's the most powerful person on the planet, and every country on the planet can take advantage of this easy to manipulate narcissistic behavior. Oh, geez. Well, that's
what a great episode.
What a great episode.
We had everything in there. We had
everything. We had Pisco. We had Guy. We had Micah. We had Soypill.
We had all four.
We had Hutch being channeled through Pisco. It was everything you ever could have wanted. Guys, Mike, at the end of this, we say, where can people find you? What do you got? What are you up to this week? So I've linked your Twitter in the description, but what are you up to this week? Do you stream regularly? Do you do videos? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I make videos all the time. You'll see some more on my Instagram, which is just like a Micah Efran on any platform. You'll find me. I have 2 YouTube videos coming tomorrow. One of the YouTube videos is from a conservative radio show that I went on this morning. It's one of the biggest conservative radio shows in Texas, so I really think that will be pretty interesting. And yeah, I'm going to be doing more in-person debate content, and there's a lot of great stuff coming. So make sure to follow me. I really appreciate it.
All right, Pisco, what are you up to this week?
Oh, I'm going back to New York tonight or tomorrow. It's New Year's, right? And so I'll be streaming. And I'm talking to who is it? Counterpoints again. And we just had a big disagreement, big disagreement. And then also Ryan Mullally about Supreme Court stuff this week. So keep an eye on that.
Awesome. Guy?
Wow, you guys always have cool stuff going, man. I should try to arrange anything. I'm just in the TikTok trenches, man, slugging it out with MAGA, having a blast over there. So come hang out if you want to see some debates.
Right on. Are they, in your perception, are they getting weaker, or are they getting more fervent? Like with the Trump declining popularity, are they kind of like, because when Micah and I were at AmFest, so many people, we'd ask them stuff and it would be like, yeah, like, you know, it used to be like, you know, Trump's 100% correct, he's doing the right decision, this is liberal fake media. Now it's just like, yeah, that was a little silly. Like you could get even like the slightest capitulation out of them, and it's like, wow, like even they're kind of breaking off. Do you notice that at all? Or
yeah, so you can get, there are a lot of L's on the board now. Before they could say, this is coming, he needs some time, wait till you see what happens. Now it's been about a year, and you know, there's been a lot of disappointment. So they're kind of playing this game of both sides now. Instead of criticizing Trump, they say, well, all politicians are this or that. So having to deal with that nowadays.
All right. On my end, I'm editing the video that's coming out in a couple. I'm not going to say when, because I don't know when.
Who's racist, Soypill?
No one's racist.
It's Micah's racist video.
It's Micah's racist. No, it's with, the right wing, you know, grievance grifters like the Riley Gaines and the Kyle Rittenhouses and all these people that like are pundits.
Oh shit!
They did something that they're upset about. But tomorrow, because my community really wants one, TF2 stream. We'll I don't know if you guys play Team Fortress 2, but if you do, I'll prioritize the.
I like being the heavy or the engineer.
Well, if you want to join,
Yeah, can the engineer, can you still block the door at the spawn so nobody can leave? I've seen hilarious videos of that.
I haven't played in like a year since last time I community streamed it, so maybe I'll find out when all of my fans troll me because it's really easy to stream snipe. And then the day after that on New Year's, I think I'm streaming the Obsidian 33 Game of the Year thing because everyone's asking.
Hell yeah!
But yeah, that's what's going on with me. Hutch is probably back to streaming this week.
Yeah,
he's on vacation right now.
He was live most of break, right?
He was live today, just this morning before he left for vacation, presumably. So yeah, go check out Hutch as well. Yeah,
it was a one afternoon vacation that happened just during Live and Learn.
Oops. Yeah, sorry, Micah. I have a vacation on that specific hour and a half. I can't make it. All right. Oh, and
everyone should follow Micah on Twitter and on YouTube.
He ran from you, Micah. That's the truth.
Yeah,
he got scared.
He was scared.
He was scared of getting, scorched.
I'm getting scorched just by virtue of being on the same podcast with Hutch. Someone's coming after him. All these like, what is it? Is Ogre Boy like an?
Yeah, no. He really just him and Hutch always go at it. I do want to say, Mike, I really appreciate your ruthless pragmatism. I appreciate that, and I love people who who are fighters, and you're definitely a fighter, and so everyone should follow Micah.
Yeah,
and I want to say I love the young libs, man, and it's great. That's why I asked you, why did you not become a Republican? It's just fascinating for me that people your age are being liberals, because it's so easy to be a conservative. So it's good for you, bro.
Yeah,
people better keep hanging on because I might go grifting. I'm just kidding.
Oh fuck! we have to reach 1,000, otherwise I'm becoming a Republican.
Just like Dean and Parker, you guys can join my concubine harem or whatever that Navy SEAL. You know that Navy SEAL who?
Yeah. He was, Micah, were you in that picture, by the way?
No, I was not. Okay. I missed out.
Yeah. No, don't worry. There'll be more opportunities. There'll be more Democratic twinks to come. The last thing, though, next week, I think we have trans comedian and Twitter shitposter Stacy. I think will be our guest. So if you guys are interested, she's really funny. Go check her out, and we'll have her on next week. So awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Don't forget to keep living and learning, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, Micah.
Stay cool. Thank you, Micah.
Yep.